Hello and welcome to Yardline Yammer. I'm your girl TT. Please like and subscribe on your way in and also hit that notification bell so you'll know when I drop a new video. On today's video, we will be covering the Ohio Buckeyes as they are ranked number 2 on the ESPN preseason ranking. I was given a little feedback on my Georgia piece to get to the predictions faster. So I will give a brief update on what players have left, who's coming in to replace them, and who remained. I do this because I think it's important to understand why I'm making the predictions that I'm making. But I promise I will get to the predictions a lot faster. How about 2 minutes? That's only 120 seconds. Okay, let's get started now. Quickly, the Buckeyes lost 4 players to the NFL draft. That's going to be wide receiver Marvin Harrison Jr., defensive tackle Michael Hall Jr., tight end Cade Stovers, and linebacker Tommy Eckenberg, each having a great contribution in the 2023 season. Now to the portal. The Buckeyes notably lost running back Chip Trayanum that will be replaced by returning Buckeye Travion Henderson, and he will be backed up by the phenomenal transfer Quinshon Judkins coming from Ole Miss. They also lost quarterback Kyle McCord, who will be replaced by Kansas State transfer Will Howard. Also returning is wide receiver Emeka Ogubaka and tight end Bennett Christian, who had to sit out last year due to a suspension for a banned substance. Yes, I did it. Okay, now let's get into those predictions for the year. Game number 1 is going to be against Akron. Akron had a record of 2-10 last year. They're a small school from the Mid-American Conference, so this is basically a practice game for the Ohio Buckeyes. I fully expect Ohio to win this game. Game number 2 is going to be against Western Michigan, who had a record of 4-8 last year. They are also from the Mid-American Conference, and yeah, another practice game. Ohio should take the win easily. Game number 3 is Marshall. Marshall is coming out of the Sun Belt Conference, and this is game number 3 that the Buckeyes should win as they still haven't faced any competition. Game number 4 will be Michigan State. Ohio will finally meet a real competitor. But Michigan State is coming in with a new head coach, Jonathan Smith, and a mostly new coaching staff. They will be losing running back Jalen Berger, but retained Nate Carter. There was also a shakeup on the defensive side for Michigan State. For this one, I'm choosing Ohio, mostly because I think Michigan State will need time to learn to gel together. Game number 5 will be Iowa. The Hawkeyes had a decent season last year despite starting quarterback Cade McNamara going out with a torn ACL early in the season. But McNamara will be back and ready to shake, rattle, and roll. And while Iowa didn't score big in the transfer portal, they did retain a good number of their players, and therefore I am choosing Iowa for the win. Game number 6 will be against Oregon. Oregon had 2 losses last year, and both of those were to Washington, so they had a fairly good season last year. They did lose 8 players to the NFL draft this year, but they did have some good pickups in the transfer portal, namely defensive line Jamari Caldwell and quarterbacks Dylan Gabriel and Dante Moore. I believe Oregon is going to have the edge on this one, so I am predicting that the Ducks will take the win. Game number 7 is Nebraska. Nebraska had a pretty rough year last year, and in addition to that, they lost starting quarterback Jeff Sims. But they did make a pickup in the portal, and they will have quarterback Dylan Raiola and wide receiver Jamal Banks from Wake Forest. They had 3 transfers from Florida on the defensive side, as well as 3 transfers from Georgia. Even with all the changes at Ohio State, I still predict that they will beat Nebraska. So I'm going Ohio for the win. Game number 8 is going to be against Penn State. Penn State had a decent record last year with only 2 losses in the regular season, with one of those coming from Ohio. But Penn State had major pieces coming back this year on the offensive side, including quarterback Drew Allar, who's listed as a Heisman Trophy potential, backup quarterback Bo Pribula, running back Nicholas Singleton and Katron Allen, and tight end Tyler Warren. On offense, they lost Keandra Lambert-Smith to the transfer portal and tight end Theo Johnson to the NFL draft. On the defensive end, they are returning linebacker Kobe King, Calvin Winston Jr., and Jalen Reed, along with transfer A.J. Harris from Georgia. This defense is going to be no joke for the upcoming season. And for that reason, I am going with Penn State for the win. Sorry, Buckeye fans. This may not be your greatest season. Game number 9 will be against Purdue. The Boilermakers had a new coach last year, and that went pretty much as expected with a 4-8 record. Purdue made some pickups from the transfer portal, namely Nyland Green and Kendrick Breedlove on the defensive end and CJ Smith on the offensive side. But I don't think it's enough for them to take over the Ohio Buckeyes. So I am going with Ohio for the win against Purdue. Game number 10 is Northwestern. Northwestern had a bit of a shakeup last year at the head coaching position, as then head coach Fitzgerald was fired just prior to the season starting over some horrendous accusations surrounding his knowledge of hazing freshman players in some pretty egregious manners. At that time, Braun was named the interim head coach, ending the season with a 7-5 record and taking the Wildcats to a bowl game in its first season. There was a little movement in the transfer portal, and the Wildcats picked up quarterback Mike Wright from Mississippi State. I don't think that's going to be enough for them to beat Ohio. So I am going with Ohio for the win against Northwestern. Game number 11 will be against Indiana. The Hoosiers are also coming in with a new head coach this year. They ended their season last year with a 3-9 record, which I guess explains the need for a new head coach. Indiana got lots of fresh faces from the transfer portal. I mean, almost the entire offensive line is from the transfer portal. They will be led at the quarterback position by Curtis Rorick, coming from the Ohio Bobcats with an impressive season last year, and wide receiver Miles Price coming out of Texas Tech, and Elijah Sarrett coming from James Madison. While these are great moves for Indiana as they start to build, it's not going to be enough for them to take out Ohio. So I am predicting Ohio for the win over Indiana. And game number 12 will be against the other Michigan team. You know, the one that cheats a little. Just kidding. But they are dealing with the sanctions that are a result of some rules being broken. So new head coach Sharon Moore will have to deal with those sanctions left for him by the previous staff. Let's see what they're getting. A few of the Wolverines got drafted this year in the NFL draft. That's going to leave a gap, namely quarterback J.J. McCarthy, cornerback Mike Senristel, linebacker Junior Colson, running back Blake Corum, wide receiver Roman Wilson, and offensive lineman Zach Zinter. On top of that, there was a mass exodus from other players due to the change in the head coach, and there wasn't a ton of pickups from the portal. Sophomore Alex Orji will be the starting quarterback, or at least that's what the assumption is right now. My guess is we will find out when the season starts. Okay, so I'm going to predict that due to all of the changes happening at Michigan, that Ohio will win this game. But I will note that this will be the end of the season, so Michigan may have found their footing by then. So it might be a close game, but I'm going to stick with my prediction that Ohio will win this game. Now, to answer the big question, is ESPN correct with placing Ohio in the number 2 spot? I'm going to say no. I have Ohio losing at least 3 games this year, and I strongly believe that they will fall from the number 2 spot by midseason. Thank you so much for watching. I would love it if you leave your comments below. Do you agree? Will they lose 3 games this season, or do you think they're going to run the gamut here? I would love to hear your comments, so put them below. Also, like and subscribe if you have not done so already. Thumbs up the video if you enjoyed it, and I will see you on the next one. Next up is going to be the Texas Longhorns, and I'm looking forward to doing that one. I will see you back here then. Have a good one.